Hi everyone, welcome back to another design session. This video is part of my My Little Pony Dungeons & Dragons design series, and we will specifically be focusing on designing a paladin Applejack for this video. So grab your sketchbooks, your tea, or a snack, and let's get to designing. So for this design project, I immediately chose the paladin class for Applejack and potentially taking the more specific oath of devotion for her, but that might change if her story evolves or goes a different way than I'm thinking right now. So for now, the direction of her design will be sort of a rookie paladin farmhand with an incomplete set of armor and a hand-me-down sword, but we'll get to that soon in the video. So her working backstory as of now is that, like in the show, her and her family operate a farm on the outskirts of Ponyville, and their harvest supports the town and acts as sort of an ambassador / relationships manager to local nature spirits as well. They maintain a balanced relationship with the spirits that allow for their farm to flourish and support the town, while the Apple family protects various natural sanctuaries throughout the land in return. So this relationship was formed hundreds of years ago when there was still a divide between magic and non-magic folk in Equestria. And in fact, their ancestors, the Apple ancestry, were a key stepping stone in progress of bringing people together through their symbiotic relationship with the nature spirits. And this eventually led them to be blessed and appointed directly by the goddess Celestia to continue to protect their land and foster community relationships between magic folk and non-magic folk. And since then, the Apples have continued to uphold this title with pride as they serve the people of Ponyville and greater Equestria through their produce and through their products and their sense of community. However, when Applejack was still very young, an intense and wicked fire ravaged through the farm, spread by some unknown cause. Thankfully, local mages, wizards, and sorcerers were able to contain the fire before it reached the town, but it destroyed a significant portion of the farmland. And after trying and trying again with no result to refertilize and resow on the charred ground, Applejack's parents were desperate to expand the farm to save their livelihoods for an upcoming harvest and save the town that relied so heavily on the food that they produced. They pleaded with the nature spirits to help them, but they were just as weakened and as damaged from the attack as the farm was, and they lost much of their power through the wake of the fire. Even their pleas to Celestia, the goddess of light, were unanswered as well. Applejack's parents turned to the brooding trees of the Everfree Forest as their last resort to save the farm and expand. One day, the couple carried out a mission to examine the soil in the forest and scout for fertile land, but they never returned from their mission. And the farm never got back to the same glorious and fruitful days of old, but they still managed to provide for a great portion of Ponyville's needs. As Applejack grew older and learned the history of her family and the farm, was given her family's heirloom sword, she has taken it upon herself as her life's mission to restore and always protect the farm and her family and restore the farm to its original status in Ponyville, while also reforming the weakening bonds with the nature spirits and somehow find faith in a goddess that abandoned them. Okay, that's partially why I want her path to be the Oath of Devotion. She's devoted to this cause of restoring the farm, and also one of the tenets of this oath is honesty, which that's basically Applejack's whole thing. Her story ties into the rest of the girls since they all know each other with growing up and living in Ponyville. But part of the reason why Twilight comes into the story, which I'll explain in Twilight's video, but the Everfree Forest starts to encroach on the farmland and start to poison soil and destroy some crops. So that's partially why Twilight gets called in to come investigate Ponyville as someone who's more magically inclined to kind of figure out what's going on. And yeah, that just starts their whole adventuring party. So yeah, that's the basic breakdown. That's all I have for right now for her backstory and motivation as a character. So let's move on to her visual design. As you guys have been witnessing as I talk about her background, I've been painting this sort of basic portrait of her. Hopping back to the sketches beforehand, I really want to be intentional with designing her likeness and thinking about her personality. Applejack, just like in the show, is incredibly reliable and hardworking and really values what she can do for her community. She's very work and services oriented, always working on a project or a plan for the farm or helping a friend in town. This often causes her to overwork herself to make sure everyone is okay and taken care of, and it leads her to frustration towards herself and sometimes the people around her. Even though she has the help of family members and friends, she's stubborn to do things herself and do it her way and shovel on more responsibilities to help her family and community. But when she does get a chance to rest or is forced to rest by Granny Smith, she either loves spending her time in nature, in a quiet meadow, or dozing under a tree, or she loves to go to Pinky's Tavern to dance, sing, and eat with friends. She cares so much for her community and is extremely passionate about keeping things orderly, safe, and supported. I wanted to match the farm girl, approachable, friendly look with her likeness. So after studying a variety of faces and eventually coming up with a likeness that matched the idea of what I have in my head. So I kind of want to go for smaller eyes, kind of a more buttonish nose, fuller cheeks, a strong chin, and of course her freckles. I did some more exploration in my sketchbook, really finalizing her design more and having fun with some more expressions. I also took some time through this rough preliminary stage to explore a more specific body type for her. So with designing the main 6, I really want to be intentional about not repeating the same body type for every character or the same face for every character. So for Applejack, I went through a couple of sketches and studies of more muscular, wider bodies that I think would fit her occupation more. So she needs big muscles to be able to lift equipment on the farm, use a sword and potentially a shield to defend the party from foes, and just be strong enough to wear that armor for most of the day. So I figured having more of a wider, broader, stronger legged character matches more to that occupation. It would make sense for her. And I think having a wider, more straight up and down torso for female characters is something I would personally love to see more in character design, since it's such a common body type, but I don't always see it as much as the more stereotypical curvy and small waist designs. And I also wanted that to be reflected in her face as well. So going back to her likeness, tying things in, making her face rounder, fuller, a broader face to actually match with the makeup of her body and make sure it made sense. Once again, I'm here to set my design intentions for this project as being the same as the Fluttershy project. And my intention for this video project series is to design the characters as if they would be in a comic series. So I want to adjust my art style accordingly. And one of my biggest art goals this year is to explore more comic making and writing. And if you've seen my work before, I definitely lean more into painting. So this is a chance to really hone in on my inking and drawing skills, which I feel like I've already improved a lot with this series of work. I still have a lot to learn, but it's been a really fun process and very fulfilling to push myself to try new things and actually see myself get more confident and comfortable with what I'm doing. And I'm constantly on the lookout for more references and style inspirations and overall stories to get into, and getting back into reading more comics. So if you have any good fantasy recommendations, let me know in the comments down below. Taking an aside for now to mention a little idea I had while painting this little spot illustration of an apple blossom dagger cutting some apples. So this idea initially stemmed from eating just a lot of apples last month and wanting to draw my favorite snack for my birthday month, but in an epic hardcore way with an intricate dagger cutting the apples and just making it more interesting. So as I was thinking more about this apple blossom dagger I was slowly designing, it made me think of Applejack's little sister, Apple Bloom, and maybe this dagger is an heirloom gift from her parents that was given to Applejack, and then Applejack passed it on to Apple Bloom to kind of include her in the family tradition of protecting the farm. So just a little fun idea for a sort of sweet moment between these two sisters, which I would love to design Apple Bloom and some of the other Apple family members as well. So let me know if you guys are interested in that in the comments. And this design is also part of my sticker club for the month of April. So if you sign up anytime during the month of April, you'll receive this sticker and the other benefits on my Patreon. Other tiers include early access to my art, comics, and videos, as well as access to my patron-only art Discord server, where we will be hosting an upcoming character design live stream on April 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, where you'll be able to vote on different parts of the design process, aka chat takes over as art directors. It's gonna be a super fun event and I would love for you to be there. So check out the link to my Patreon down below. And a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting my artwork and my channel. You guys have been an incredible support for bringing my stories to life and keeping this channel running, as other opportunities have been more sparse these days. So it truly means a lot to me, especially during these more difficult times. So yeah, okay, let's get back on track. So moving on to designing the actual clothing and costuming. So we know that she works on a farm and has taken on this protective paladin role in her community. So let's lay out some ideas for how she dresses and presents herself in her community. So the initial idea I had was your classic golden paladin look, very much an earthy inspired color palette. It was a good start to what I wanted and matched pretty closely to the vibe that I was trying to go for. Sort of this hybrid between a farmer with the gloves, the chaps, the boots, the vest, and the cowboy hat, but the touches of paladin with the neck plate, shoulder plates, gauntlet covers, and other gold accents. For the next iteration, I wanted to try something a little bit more dressy. I imagined a sleeveless vest with a skirt and more swooping, graceful, gold accents. I like the silhouette of the just one shoulder pad being there and the longer gloves, but the practicality of this design wasn't really working for what I had imagined for her, and it just wasn't working out. As cool as it would be to show off her muscles, it wasn't working out. It's not that practical. So I'm trying to achieve this balance of practicalness and actual fantasy, so it just felt like it was pushing it a little too far. But for the next iteration, I decided to take a more sort of laid back approach, almost more like a swashbuckler with the red sash and poofy sleeves. And I think what I really like most about this design was the orange bandana and the green vest. I really liked this version, and so did a lot of my patrons, but it didn't really feel like paladin at all. So we all deemed it her off-duty outfit, something more casual and comfortable for going into town on the weekends or something, just grabbing a beer. Yeah. So we really like this design, but I'll save it for a more casual episode or something. So the final iteration, I combined a lot of my favorite elements from the first iteration with the third iteration and created a more fitting design for a part-time paladin, part-time farmer Applejack. So keeping the original armor, adding the neck scarf, and adding more color variation with the addition of the blue pants and the green scarf, this color palette feels more grounded, and the primary color scheme vibe, it really lends itself to her being a strong, stable, reliable character. She knows who she is, she's dependable and friendly, and I feel primary color palettes always give off that vibe to me. It's just these basic structural colors just feel very safe, or there's a strong foundation there. And I can imagine a further developed Applejack having a more complete armor set, but for now she's working with hand-me-downs from her family and whatever she can get her hands on in town. So moving on to her weapon design, I kind of stuck with just a simple sword idea for now. I think I also had some ideas for an axe and a shield design, but due to time and also just a personal preference for swords, I went with an idea of a sword that has been passed down for generations in the Apple family. The initial design I came up with honestly isn't that crazy. It's not that interesting. I mainly just sought to create something that would complement her already established design. I drafted out a couple iterations, but the main one stuck with a simple sword design that mimicked the shape of her hat in the hilt and repeated the diamond pattern in her clothes and the swirls in her vest. Almost the sword was matches the Apple aesthetic and was designed to be hers or something. I don't know. It's not fully developed yet, but I just like the idea of this being a hand-me-down simple sword that eventually becomes hers. Now it's time to put everything together and to make a complete design for this character. I decided to reel back on what I wanted to include with this character sheet. I think when I was working on the Fluttershy sheet, all of the components felt sort of cluttered due to my lack of planning or like not knowing what I wanted to include in the sheet. So for Applejack's design sheet, I made sure to be intentional and stuck with a simple plan of just like one initial design, 3 expressions, a pattern reference for her clothing, a sword reference, and an action pose of her using her weapon. The initial design always takes me the longest to complete because this is when I'm like really hammering out the details, functionality, and layers of the design based off of my like small color thumbnail. I made sure to pull up my references again to draw as like accurately as possible while still keeping a more like cartoonish style. And I remember struggling quite a bit with the form of like the shoulder pieces, so references totally saved the day with that one. But once I had the initial character design down and fleshed out, the rest of the sheet I was able to finish in just like a couple more drawing sessions. The expressions were really fun to draw and came together pretty quickly. I wanted to include sort of like an angry, frustrated face, a more positive, like cheerful face, and then a sad face to also demonstrate what her hair looks like without a hat. And as for the action pose, this didn't take very long at all to complete since I already had the base design down and just a matter of moving things around and thinking of the different aspects of her design in 3D space. It was really cool to finally see this design come to life, and at this time I also began developing sort of a one-off painting of AJ on the farm, chilling after a hard day's work, but honestly I think I might completely scrap this painting concept, at least for now. I've only sunk in like a couple hours into it, but I think now I have an even better idea of who Applejack is and an idea for an illustration of her. So this would like still be like a sunset piece because I really think like sunset, I like just keep on thinking of her in like a sunset setting for some reason, and I thought it would share way more of her character if she was like hauling produce or like materials, building something on the farm or in town, or watching over the farm on a hill or something. This initial idea is okay, the one that I like started to work on, but I want to push more of how I can tell her story and personality through an image rather than just like her just holding an apple and like slouching against like the barn or something. I just wanted to see if I could like push something a little bit more, but I did not have the time to like start another piece, so that's for the next video. So after completing this design, I feel like I improved so much since the Fluttershy project. Looking at them side by side, my lines look more confident and my design decisions feel more like concrete and purposeful. Reflecting back on my review for the Fluttershy project, I said that I really struggled with decision making and project timeline, and I definitely think I improved in these areas with this second character. I still struggle with getting all of the ideas done that I want to do by the time the video is set to be like completed and posted, like especially that painting idea. I still wasn't able to make an illustration like the Fluttershy video. Honestly, I'm gonna blame that on taxes this time around. Tax filing was a mess this year, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. My line work skills definitely had a level up as well, and I'm actually finding myself starting to enjoy that part of the process more, which is really weird and something that I thought I would never hear myself say. I think for the next project, I really want to challenge myself to just like push myself to go a little bit faster and really try and dedicate like bigger blocks of time to work on the project, because I found that there was just a bunch of different things I was working on, and it felt like this project would always be like pushed as like the last thing to do when I should really like prioritize things differently and really just take the time to find like a big block of time to work on something, because I feel like that's when I get the most progress and like feel more connected to the project. Sometimes it's harder for me if something is like spread out over time, like a painting or something. It's hard for me to continually get back into it. Sometimes I just need to like sit down and stay with it for like a week or something and just finish it that way. Which, if you're wondering who will be the next in the series, it will be Rarity, as voted on by my patrons. And I don't want to rush the design per se, like I was saying, but I think I still drag my feet a little little bit because of uncertainty about the direction of how I want to take the character. Also, I want these videos to come out in a more timely manner for you guys as well. They've been coming out like months apart, so I just need to go for it. And I would encourage any of you guys to do the same with any art project that you're avoiding because you don't know if you have the skills for it yet. Just go for it and you'll be so glad that you did. And that is my final design of Paladin Applejack. Well, I shouldn't say final design. There's always room to like improve it and change it, but I hope you like how she turned out. I would really love to expand this universe by delving into environment design with reimagining Sweet Apple Acres in this more semi-realistic style and also the Everfree Forest. So there might be a video in the next couple of months about that. I don't know. I haven't really jumped into the world of environment design yet, but I'm excited to. So in the meantime, if you missed my previous character design video with Fluttershy, you can watch that next. Or if you're watching this like way into the future, hopefully I have more of the characters finished and you can just like binge watch a playlist of them somewhere on my channel. And as always, thank you so much to my patrons for supporting my art and this channel. And thank you for watching my video. It truly means a lot to me. And yeah, all right, take care, keep drawing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.